we have a
Secretary, do you
conversation
know
without being
what
so rude?
I'm reclaiming my time.
Okay, I just ask you not to be so rude. I mean, I'd really like to have a legitimate conversation.
Do you know what percentage of farmers now say they can't afford fertilizer for this year as a result of the president's war in Iran?
Well, it depends on the geographic location.
Oh my God.
The temperature inside the hearing room spiked when Democratic Congresswoman Angie Craig accused the Trump administration of failing America's family farmers, and after repeatedly pressing Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins for answers, Rollins fired back, saying, "I just ask you not to be so rude." But beneath the tense exchange was a much bigger fight over who's really responsible for the growing farm crisis.
And now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Secretary, do you know how many farms we lost in the United States last year?
I know you were talking about the bankruptcies. I know that about 315 farms of 1.88 million are moving through bankruptcy right now.
We lost 15,000 farms last year.
Well, that's
Some
a conversation
third,
I would
fourth,
really
some third,
like to have.
fourth, and fifth generation farms.
Okay, so not bankruptcy,
15,000
just
farms.
the
We lost
purchase.
15,000 farms because of bad policy on the part of this administration.
So you think we walked in the door
I'm sorry,
and those
I'm
farms
going to ask the
closed
questions here
immediately?
today.
Okay, I would love a question.
Do you know how much money farmers lost last year? What their losses were last year? It was $28 billion. You're the Secretary of Agriculture. $28 billion.
Well, it depends how you calculate that, because I don't think you're taking into account all the crop protection, all the insurance, all of the different programs that went through to support our farmers.
Right, and if this administration didn't have terrible policies, we would not need all that support for family farmers, because we would have export markets still left in China. Thank you for that.
Madam Ranking Member, that is absolutely 100% not correct. When we lost all of our trade access around the world, we went to
Madam
a $42
Secretary, I'm
billion
going to reclaim my time on
agricultural
behalf
trade
of family
deficit.
farmers.
That was not the Trump
Reclaiming my
administration. That
time
was
means you
the
stop
Biden
talking.
administration.
That's what it means in this building. You stop talking when I reclaim my time. What's the national average of farm diesel right now?
The national average of farm diesel.
Yeah, what's
well,
the diesel?
Has increased because of the Iranian conflict.
How much was it? How much is
well,
it right now?
Before the Iranian conflict, it had gone way up. All inputs under the last administration increased about 40%. That's what we inherited.
Reclaiming my time. Madam Secretary, Joe Biden is no longer the President of the United States. Mr. Trump is. Your party controls Congress. You own these numbers at this point in time. I'm sick of hearing you blame an administration from a year and a half ago. You own every single bit of this. Since you don't know the answer, in May, the average price of diesel was $5.41 a gallon. That's up 95% from a year ago, the entire year in which this administration was in power in the White House, the House, and the Senate. Let me ask you another question to see if you know anything about farm policy. Since the start of the Iran war, how much have fertilizer prices increased for American farmers?
Well, there are 4 different pockets of fertilizer. Nitrogen, I'm sure, is what you're talking about, which is ammonia. That's increased about 40% based on the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The others are a little more stable, but we are now. It did go up almost 90% under the Biden years. So even though we're hitting record numbers,
reclaiming
and we take
my
that very
time.
seriously.
You are in power. You own this entire town.
This is
Madam
we have a
Secretary. Do you
conversation
know
without being
what
so rude?
reclaiming my time?
Okay, I just ask you not to be so rude. I mean, I'd really like to have a legitimate conversation.
Do you know what percentage of farmers now say they can't afford fertilizer for this year as a result of the president's war in Iran?
Well, it depends on the geographic location.
Oh my
the
God.
Southeast
70% is the answer across
those are not
the country.
The numbers. That's not correct.
Madam Secretary, do you know what the SNAP fraud rate actually is according to the most recent estimates from USDA? The fraud rate.
Well, that is based on data we're receiving from the states that we can't verify. That's the whole point of this, is we have no ability to verify California, Minnesota, where the fraud has been
reclaiming my time. It was 1.6% according to USDA.
Your state is saying we only have 1.6% fraud rate, which we all know is an absolute joke.
I'll say it again. The USDA's own data found 1.6%. I don't
No,
know.
we were
I
relying
don't
on
think,
your
I
data
don't
from
think
Minnesota,
you
and you won't
understand
share
the
it with
difference
us.
between error rates and fraud rates. I honestly don't. It is one of the lowest fraud rate in any program in America is the SNAP program.
The lowest fraud rate of any program in America is the SNAP program? You can't be
your
serious when
own-
you say
your
that.
Your own data says 1.6%,
Again,
Madam
that's because
Secretary.
the states, your state
Reclaiming
has
my
told us
time
that number,
once more.
and you won't allow us to confirm it.
You've bragged on TV that it's a great thing that you kicked 4 million people off SNAP.
The ability to work, the righteousness of work is not.
Reclaiming my time, 700,000
We should be proud.
kids.
That's the goal of these welfare programs.
Madam Secretary, I'm asking you these questions because these issues, this committee, it's all personal
You're
to
not
me.
asking questions for an
My
answer.
mom
You're
was
asking questions to make a political
reclaiming
statement.
my time again.
I would like to actually have a real
My mom was,
conversation.
Madam Secretary, Mr. Chair, she talked over half of my time here. So, look, when you describe the farm economy as the golden age,
Gentlelady's time has expired.
this administration needs to wake
Now
up and start
recognize the
understanding
gentleman
that
from
family
Oklahoma,
farmers are
Mr. Lucas.
in need.
This hearing wasn't just about a heated exchange between two officials. It was about whether the Trump administration is doing enough to protect America's family farmers at a time when many are facing rising costs and financial uncertainty. Democratic Representative Angie Craig opened with a stark statistic. She said the United States lost 15,000 farms over the past year, many of them fourth- and fifth-generation family operations. Her argument was clear: these aren't just numbers. They represent family businesses, rural communities, and generations of farmers struggling to survive. Craig then challenged Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins on the financial state of American agriculture, pointing to an estimated $28 billion in farm losses. Rollins pushed back, arguing that the figure doesn't reflect federal support programs such as crop insurance and disaster assistance. But Craig countered that farmers shouldn't have to depend so heavily on government aid if the administration's trade and economic policies were delivering the results it promised. The exchange quickly turned into a debate over accountability. Rollins repeatedly pointed to inflation and economic conditions inherited from the previous administration. Craig wasn't convinced. She reminded the secretary that Republicans now control the White House and Congress, arguing that it's no longer credible to keep blaming past administrations for today's problems. Her point was straightforward: when you're in power, voters expect solutions, not excuses. Craig then shifted to the costs farmers face every day. She pressed Rollins on the price of diesel fuel and fertilizer, arguing that those rising costs are making it harder for family farms to stay profitable. Rollins acknowledged increases in some fertilizer prices but maintained that conditions vary depending on the type of fertilizer and location, while also noting that many agricultural input costs had risen before the current administration took office. The most memorable moment came when Craig repeatedly reclaimed her speaking time to keep the questioning focused. Rollins, visibly frustrated, responded, "I just ask you not to be so rude. I'd really like to have a legitimate conversation." That exchange grabbed headlines, but it also reflected a deeper disagreement. Craig believed the secretary wasn't giving direct answers to pressing questions about the challenges facing farmers. Rollins believed she wasn't being given enough time to explain the administration's position. The hearing then moved to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Craig cited USDA data showing a reported fraud rate of 1.6%, arguing that the administration was overstating fraud while using it to justify removing millions of people from food assistance. Rollins disputed that interpretation, saying the federal government relies heavily on state-reported data and lacks the ability to independently verify all fraud cases. From a Democratic perspective, Craig's broader message was that the administration has spent too much time defending its record and not enough time addressing the real economic pressures facing working families and farmers. Rising fuel costs, expensive fertilizer, shrinking profit margins, and uncertainty in global markets are problems that require practical solutions, not political finger-pointing. At the same time, it's important to recognize that several of the figures cited during the hearing were disputed by the witnesses, and members of Congress often use questioning to advance competing policy arguments. The hearing itself reflects those disagreements rather than independently resolving them. The bigger takeaway is that family farmers don't care which party controls Washington, they care whether they can afford to keep their farms running. Democrats argue that government should focus on lowering costs, expanding markets, and supporting rural communities instead of shifting responsibility for today's challenges onto previous administrations. Whether those concerns are addressed will have real consequences for the future of American agriculture.